The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. This is written by Christopher Paul Curtis. And it won the Coretta Scott King Award and the Newbery. Chapter 1. And you wonder why we get called the Weird Watsons? It was one of those super duper cold Saturdays. One of those days when you breathed out, your breath kind of hung frozen in the air like a hunk of smoke, and you could walk along and look exactly like a train blowing out big, fat, white puffs of smoke. It was so cold that if you were stupid enough to go outside, your eyes would automatically blink 1,000 times by themselves, probably so the juice inside of them wouldn't freeze up. It was so cold that if you spit, the slob would be an ice cube before it hit the ground. It was one of those zillion degrees below zero days. It was even cold inside our house. We put on sweaters and hats and scarves and 3 pairs of socks on, and still we were cold. The thermostat was turned all the way up, and the furnace was banging and sounding like it was about to blow up, but it still felt like Jack Frost had moved in with us. All of my family sat real close together on the couch under a blanket. Dad said this would generate a little more heat. But he didn't have to tell us this. It seemed like the cold automatically made us want to get together and huddle up. My sister, Joetta, sat in the middle of us, and all you could see were her eyes, and she had a scarf wrapped around her head. I was next to her, and on the outside was my mother. Yeah, Mama was one of those, the only one of us who wasn't born in Flint. So the cold was the coldest to her. All you could see were her eyes, too, and they were shooting bad looks at Dad. She always blamed him for bringing her all the way from Alabama to Michigan, a state she called a giant icebox. Dad was bundled up on the other side of Joey, trying to look at anything but Mama. Next to Dad, sitting in the little space between them, was my older brother, Byron. Byron had just turned 13, so he was officially a teenage juvenile delinquent and didn't think it was cool to touch anybody or let anyone touch him, even if it meant that he froze to death. Byron had tucked the blanket between him and Dad down into the cushion of the couch to make sure he couldn't be touched. Dad turned on the TV to try to make us forget about how cold we all were, but all that did was get him in trouble. There was a special news report on Channel 12 telling us about how bad the weather was, and Dad groaned when the guy said, "If you think it's cold now, wait until tonight. The temperatures are expected to drop down to record low territory, possibly reaching into the negative 20s. In fact, we won't be seeing anything above 0 for the next 4 to 5 days. He was smiling when he said this, but none of the Watson family thought it was funny. We all looked over at Dad. He just shook his head and pulled the blanket over his eyes. The guy on the TV said, "Here's a little something we can use to brighten our spirits and give us some hope for the future. The temperature in Atlanta, Georgia, is forecast to reach..." Dad coughed real loud and jumped off the couch to turn off the TV, but we all heard what the weatherman said. Mid-70s. The guy might as well have tied Dad to a tree and said, "Ready? Aim, fire." "Atlanta," Mama said. "That's 150 miles from home." "Willona," Dad said. "I knew it," Mama said. I knew I should have listened to Moses Henderson." "Who?" I asked. Dad said, "Oh, Lord, not that story. Sorry story." "You've got to let me tell them what happened with him," Mama said. "There's not a whole lot to tell. Just a story of a young girl who made a bad choice. But if you do tell it, make sure you get all the facts right." We all huddled close as we could get because we knew Dad was going to try to make us forget about being cold by cutting up. Me and Joey started smiling right away, and Byron tried to look cool and bored. "Kids," Dad said. I almost wasn't your father. You guys came real close to having a clown for a daddy named Hambone Henderson. Daniel Watson, you stop right there. You're the one who started that Hambone nonsense before you started that with everyone. Called him Christian. His name, his Christian name, Moses. And he was a respectable boy, too. He wasn't a clown at all. But the name stuck, didn't it? Hambone Henderson. Me and your granddaddy called him that because the boy had a head shaped just like a ham bone. Had more knots and bumps on his head than a dinosaur. So as you guys sit here giving me all these dirty looks because of it's a little chilly outside, ask yourselves if you'd rather be a little cool or go through life being known as hambonettes. Me and Joey cracked up. Byron kind of chuckled, and Mama put her hand over her mouth. She did this whenever she was going to smile because she had a great big gap between her front teeth. If Mama thought something was funny, first you'd see her try to keep her lips together to hide the big gap. Then, if the smile got too strong, then you'd see a gap for a little hot second before Mama's hand would come up and cover it. She had cracked up too. Laughing only encouraged Dad to cut up more, so when he saw the whole family thinking he was funny, he really started putting on a show. He stood in front of the TV. Yep, Hambone Henderson proposed to your mother around the same time I did. Fought dirty, too, told your mama a pack of lies about me, and when she didn't believe them, he told her a pack of lies about Flint. Dad started talking Southern style, imitating his ham-bone guy. Willona, I heard tell you about the weather up far north Flint, Michigan. Heard it's colder than inside an icebox. Seen a movie about it. Think it was made in Flint. Movie called Nanook of the North. Yep. Do you believe for sure he made it in Flint? Flint, Michigan. Folks there live in things called igloos, according to what I seen on their movie there. But the folks in Flint is Chinese. Don't believe I seen one colored person in the whole dang city. You a Bama girl. Don't you believe you'd be happy living in... No, I don't believe you'd be happy living in no igloo. Ain't got nothing against him, but you don't believe you'd be too happy living amongst a whole slew of Chinese folks. Don't believe you'd like the food either. Only thing the Chinese folks in that movie were whales and seals. Don't believe you'd be liking no whale meat. Don't taste a lick like chicken. Don't taste a lick like pork at all. Mama pulled her hand away from her mouth. Daniel Watson, you are one lying man. One thing you said that was true was that being in Flint is like living in an igloo. I knew I should have listened to Moses. Maybe these babies might have been born with lumpy heads, but at least they'd have warm lumpy heads. You know Birmingham is a good place. And I don't mean just the weather either. Life is slower and people are friendlier. Oh yeah? Dad interrupted. They're a laugh a minute down there. Let's see. Where was that colored's only bathroom downtown? Daniel, you know what I mean. Things aren't perfect. But people are more honest about the way they feel. She took her mean eyes off of Dad and put them on Byron. And folks there do know how to respect their parents. Byron rolled his eyes. He didn't care. All he did was tuck the blanket farther into the couch cushion. Dad didn't like the direction this conversation was going, so he called the landlord the 100th time and the phone was still busy. That snake in the grass has got his phone off the hook. Well, it's going to be too cold to stay here tonight. Let me call Sindri. She just had a new furnace put in. Maybe we can spend the night there. Aunt Cindy was the kind of mean, but her house It was always warm. We kept our fingers crossed that she was home. Everyone, even Byron, cheered when Dad got Aunt Cindy, and she told us to hurry up before we froze to death. Dad went out to try to get the brown bomber started. That was what we called our car. It was a 1948 Plymouth that was dull brown and real big. Byron said it was turd brown. Uncle Bud gave it to Dad when it was 13 years old, and we had it for 2 years. Me and Dad took real good care of it, but some of the time it didn't like to start in the winter. After about 5 minutes, Dad came in, back huffing and puffing and slapping his arms across his chest. Well, it was touch and go for a while, but the great brown one pulled one through again. Everyone cheered. But me and Byron quit cheering and started frowning right away. By the way Dad smiled at us, we knew what was coming next. Dad pulled 2 ice scrapers out of the pockets and said, "Okay, boys, let's get out of there and knock off those windows out." We moaned and groaned and put on some more coats and went outside to scrape the car's windows. I could tell by the way he was pouting that Byron was going to try to get out of doing his share of the work. "I'm not going to do your part, Byron. You'd better do it. I'm not playing either." "Shut up, punk." I went over to the brown bomber's passenger side and started hacking away and scraping that ice off. It was all over the windows. I finished Mama's window, took a break, scraping off ice off the windows. When it's this cold, can kill you. I didn't hear the sound coming from the other side of the car, so I yelled out, "I'm serious, Byron. I'm not doing this side too. And I'm only doing half of the windshield. I don't care what you do to me." This windshield on the bomber was like new 1963 cars. It had big bar running across the middle of it, dividing it in half. "Shut up, your stupid mouth. I got something more important to do right now." I peeked around the back of the car to see what By was up to. The only thing he scraped off was the outside mirror, and he was bending down to look at himself in it. He saw it and said, "You know what, Square? I must be adopted. There just ain't no way 2 folks as ugly as your mama and dad could have given birth to someone as sharp as me." He was running his hands over his head like he was brushing his hair. I said, "Forget you," and went back over to the other side of the car to finish the window. I had half the ice off when I had to stop again to catch my breath. I heard Byron mumble my name. I said, "You think I'm stupid? It's not going to work this time." He mumbled my name again. It sounded this time like his mouth was full of something. I knew this was a trick. I knew this was something, and how he'd survive the blizzard, Part 2. How to survive a blizzard. Part 1 had been last night when I was outside in the snow and Byron was running his buddy, Big Bumphead. He came walking by. Bump had officially been a juvenile delinquent even longer than Byron. "Say, kid," By had said, "you want to learn something? You might save your stupid life one day." Well, I should have known better, but I was bored, and the cold weather might be making my brain slow. So I said, "What's that?" "We're going to teach you how to survive a blizzard." "Well, how?" Byron put his hands in front of his face and said, "This is the most important thing to remember, okay?" "What?" "Well, first we got to show you what it feels like to be trapped in a blizzard. You ready?" And he whispered something to Bumphead, and they both laughed. "Yeah, I'm ready." I should have known. The only reason Bumphead had and By would be to play with me was to do something mean. "Okay," By said. "First thing you got to worry about is the high winds." Byron and Bumphead each grabbed one of my arms and one of my legs and swung me in between them. "Woo! Blizzard warnings! Blizzard warnings! Woo! Take cover!" Bumphead counted to 3, and on the 3rd swing he let go of me in the air and I landed head first in the snowbank. But that was okay because I had 3 coats on, 2 sweaters, a t-shirt, 3 pairs of pants, 4 socks, along with a scarf and a hat and a hood. These guys could have hurt me if I was thrown off the Empire. Couldn't have hurt me if I was thrown off the Empire State Building. After I climbed out of the snowbank, they started laughing, and so did I. "Cool, baby bro," I said. "You passed that part of the test with a B+. What do you think, Bubhead?" Bubhead said, "Yeah, I'd give that little punk an A." They whispered something else and started laughing. "Okay," Bi said. "Second thing you gotta learn is how to keep your balance in high winds. You gotta be good at this so you won't get blowed over to those polar bear dens." They put me in between them and started making me spin around and around and around, and it seemed like they spun me for about a half an hour. When slob started flying out of my mouth, they let me stop. I wobbled around for a while, and they pushed me back in the same snowbank. When everything stopped going in circles, I got up and we all laughed again. They whispered some more mean things and said, "What do you think, Bubhead? He kept his balance a good long time. I'm going to give an A-. I ain't as hard as a grader as you. I'm going to give the little punk a double A-. Okay, Kenny. Now, the last part of the surviving a blizzard. Are you ready?" "Yep. You passed the wind test. You did real good on the balance test, but now we got to see if you can graduate. You remember what we told you was the most important thing about surviving?" "Yep." "Okay, here we go, Bubhead. Tell him about the final exam." Bubhead turned me around to look at him, putting my back to Byron. "Okay, Square," he started. "I want to make sure you're ready for this one. You done good so far. I want to make sure you don't blow it at graduation time. You think you're ready?" I nodded, getting ready to be thrown into the snowbank real hard this time. I made up my mind I wasn't going to cry or anything. I made up my mind that no matter how hard they threw me into the snow, I was going to get up laughing. "Okay," Bubhead said. "Everything's cool. You remember what your brother said about putting your hands up?" "Like this?" I covered my face with my gloves. "Yeah, that's it." Bubhead looked over my shoulder at Byron and then said, "Woo! High winds blowing, snow! Woo! Look out, blizzard a-coming! Death around the corner, look out!" Byron mumbled my name, and I turned around to see why his voice sounded so funny. As soon as I looked at him, Byron blasted me in the face with a mouthful of snow. Man, it was hard to believe how much stuff By could put in his mouth. Him and Bumphead just about died laughing, and I stood there with snow and spit and ice dripping off my face. Byron caught his breath and said, "Oh man, you flunked. You done so good, but you flunked the blowing test snow section of how to survive a blizzard. You forgot to put your hands up." "What'd you say, big Bumphead, an F?" "Oh yeah, double F-." It was a good thing my face was numb from the cold already, or I might have froze to death. I was too embarrassed about getting tricked to tell them that I went to the house and watched TV. So as me and Bi scraped the ice off the snow of the brown bomber, I wasn't going to get fooled again. I kept on chopping ice off the wind and ignored Bi's mumbling voice. The next time I took a little rest, Bi still calling my name, but something sounded like it was off. Like he was saying, "Here, here, here." When he started banging on the door of the car, I went to take a peek at what was going on. Bi was leaned over the outside mirror, looking at something in it real close. Big puffs, streams were coming out of the side of the mirror. I picked my hard chunk of ice to get ready for Byron's trick. Help me! Go get Mom! Go get Dad! Mommy, hurry! I'm not playing, Byron. I'm not that stupid. You better start doing your side of the car, or I'll tear you up with this ice ball. He banged his hands against the car and started stomping his feet. "Oh, please, Hallie, go get Mom." I raised the ice chunk over my head. I'm not playing. Bye. You better get busy, or I'm going to tell Dad. I moved closer. When I got right near him, I could see boogers running down his nose and tears running down his cheeks. These were tears from cold either. These were big, juicy crybaby tears. And I dropped my ice chunk. Bye, what's wrong? Hallie, help me. Go get help. I moved closer, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Byron's mouth was frozen to the mirror. He was as stuck as a fly on fly paper. I could have done a lot of stuff to him if it had been me. With my lips stuck to something like that, he'd have tortured me for a couple of days before he got help. But that's not me. Though I nearly broke my neck trying to get into the house to rescue Byron. As soon as I ran through the front door, Mama and Dad and Joey all yelled, "Close the door! Mama, quick! It's By! He's frozen up outside!" No one seemed to be too impressed. I screamed, "Really? He is frozen to the car! Help! He's crying!" That shook them up. You could cut Byron's head off and he probably wouldn't cry. "Kenneth, Bernard, Watson, what on earth are you talking about?" "Mama, please hurry!" Mama and Daddy and Joey threw on some extra coats, and they followed me to the brown bomber. The fly was still stuck and buzzing. "Help, Mama, help me! Get me off of here!" "Oh, my Lord!" Mama screamed. And I thought she was going to do one of those movie-style faints. She even put her hand over her forehead and staggered back a little bit. Joey, of course, started crying right along with Byron. Dad was doing his best not to explode laughing. Big puffs of smoke coming out from his nose and his mouth as he tried to squeeze his laughs down. Finally, he put his head down and his arms against the car, and he just howled. "Byron," Mama said gently, wiping the tears off the cheeks and the end of the scarf. "It's okay, sweetheart. How'd this happen?" She sounded like she was going to start crying any minute herself. Dad raised his head and said, "What are you asking how it happened? Can't you tell, Willona? This little knucklehead was kissing his reflection in the mirror and his lips got stuck." Dad took a real deep breath. "It's your tongue too? Stuck too?" "No. Quit tea today. Quit. Well, at least the boy hadn't got too passionate with himself," Dad thought. He was hilarious, and he put his head back on his arms and just howled. Mama didn't see anything funny. "Daniel Watson, what on earth are we gonna do? What do y'all do when this happens, huh?" Mama started talking her southern style when she got worried. Instead of saying "here," she said "here." And instead of saying you all, she said "y'all." Dad stopped laughing enough to say, "Willona, I've lived in Flint my whole life. 35 years. And I swear this is the first time I've ever seen anyone with their lips frozen to a mirror. Honey, I don't know what to do. Wait till he thaws out." "Pull him off, Dad," I suggested. Byron went nuts. He started banging his hands. No. Don't let him." Joey blubbered out, "This is just like the horrible story Kenny read to me about that guy, Narcissi, who stared at himself so long that he forgot to eat and starved to death. Mommy, please save him." She went over and hugged his arms around him, around stupid Byron's waist. Mama asked Dad, "What about hot water? Could we pour enough hot water on the mirror that it could warm up and then get his lips off?" So she kept wiping tears off of By's cheeks and said, "Don't worry, baby. We gonna get you off of this." But her voice was so shaky and so southern, I wondered if we would be driving around in the summer with a skeleton hanging outside our window by his lips. Dad said, "I don't know. Pouring water on him might make it worse. Might be the worst thing to do, but our only chance. Why don't you go get some hot tap water and I'll stay and wipe his cheeks." Joey told By, "Don't worry, we'll be right back." He and Mama ran inside, and Dad cracked up all over again. Well, lover boy, I guess this means no one can call you Hot Lips, can they? Dad was killing himself. Or last of the red hot lovers either, huh? He tugged on Byron's little ear, pulling his face back. By went nuts again. No, mama. Katie, go get mama. Go get mommy hooey. I guess that's not going to work, is it? Every time he wiped away a tear with the little mustache of a booger on Byron's lip, Dad couldn't help but laughing until a little river of tears was coming out of his eyes too. Dad tried to straighten up his face when Mama and Joey came running back out with the steaming hot water, but the tears were just running down his cheeks. Mama tried to pour the water on the mirror, but her hands were shaking so much she was splashing it all over the place. Dad tried too, but he couldn't look at Byron without laughing and shaking. That meant I had to do it. I knew that if my lips were frozen to something and everybody was shaking too much to pour water on them except for Byron, he'd do some real cruel stuff to me. He probably would have accidentally splashed my eyes until they were frozen shut, or put water in my ears until I couldn't hear anything. But not me. Gently, I poured this little stream of water over the mirror. Dad was right. This was the worst thing we could do. The water made the crackling sound and frozen solid soon as it touched the mirror and By's lips. Maybe By's mouth was frozen, but his hands sure weren't, and he popped me right in the forehead hard. I hate to say it, but I started crying too. It's no wonder the neighbors called us the weird Watsons behind our backs. There we were, all 5 of us, standing around a car with the temperature about 1,000,000 degrees below zero, and each one of us was crying. Top, I yelled. Daniel Watson, what are we going to do? Mama went nuts. You got to get this boy to the hospital. My baby's going to die. Dad tried to look serious real quick. Winona, how far do you think I'm going to be driving down the street with this little clown attached to my mirror? What am I supposed to do? Have him run beside the car all the way down to the emergency room? Mama looked real close at By's mouth, closed her eyes for a second, and like she was praying, and finally said, Daniel, you get in there and call the hospital and see what we should do. Joey and Kenny, go with your daddy. So Dad and Joey went crying into the house. I stayed with the brown bomber. I figured Mama was clearing everybody out for something for Byron did, and looked at Mama in a real nervous way. Mama put her scarf around Byron's face and said, Sweetheart, you know what we gotta do? We gotta do something. I'm trying to warm your face. Just relax. Okay, Mama. I know I love you, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, right? If Mama was trying to make Byron relax, she wasn't doing a really good job. All this talk about love and not getting hurt was making him real nervous. What are you gonna do? Huh? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to me? Cut! Mama moved the scarf away and put her hands on Byron's chin and the other one on his forearm. No! Key! Mama gave Byron's head a good snatch, and my eyes automatically shut, and my hands automatically flew up to cover my ears, and my mouth and automatically flew open and screamed out, Yow! I didn't see it, but I bet Byron's lips stretched about a mile before they finally let go of that mirror. I bet his lips looked like a giant rubber band before he snapped away from the glass. I didn't hear it, but I bet Byron's lips made a sound like a giant piece of paper being ripped in half. When I opened my eyes, Byron was running to the house with his hands over his mouth, and Mama followed right behind him, and I ran over to the mirror to see how much of Byron's mouth was still stuck there. The dirty dogs let Byron get away with not doing his share of the windows, and I had to do the whole car myself. When we were finally at Aunt Cindy's house, I decided to pay Byron back for punching me in the forehead and getting out of doing his part of the window of scraping Joey was sitting between us. So I felt kind of safe. And I said in a loud voice, "Joetta, guess what? I'm thinking about writing my own comic book." "About what?" "Well, it's going to be about this real mean criminal who had a terrible accident that turned him into a superhero." Joey knew what I was going to tease Byron, so she sat there looking at me like I should be careful about what I said, and finally I asked her, "Do you know what I'm going to call the new superhero?" "What?" "I'm going to call him Lipless Wonder." And all he does is beat up superheroes smaller than him, and the only thing he's afraid of is a cold mirror. All the weird Watsons except Byron cracked up. Mama's hand covered her mouth. I was the only one who saw Byron flip me a dirty finger sign and try to whisper without smearing all the Vaseline Mama had put on his lips. You wait, I'm going to kick your little behind." Then he made his eyes go cross, which was his favorite way of teasing me. But I didn't care. I knew who had won this time.